And so he's in Lodabar. You got to understand that it's not your condition that gets God's attention, but it's your cry of faith to him. God heals you from cancer. You ain't the only someone who was at Cooper Green with cancer. God bless you with a new job when you lost your other one. You weren't the only one that got fired and laid off. God delivered you from a broken home, a broken marriage, a broken heart. God delivered you from a situation that has caused other folk to lose their mind. You're not the only one who went through that. Why is it that God chose you for deliverance? The reason is because your cry of faith is what gets God's attention. Nobody has a monopoly on hard times. Nobody has a monopoly on being down. But when you cry to the Lord in faith, when you say move, he's going to move to your beckon and to your call. Why? Because he loves you more than life himself. Secondly, he never lost the signs of his failure and the signs of his infirmity. You would assume that if God was going to allow Mephibosheth to come and dwell in the place of destiny that he had chose for him, surely he could have healed his legs. But sometimes God allows your infirmity and the sign of your test to be a permanent part of your testimony so that folk can look at you and see what God brought you from and say, that's the reason I can carry on, because if she can do it, and her situation was way worse than mine, I know my little test means nothing. Think about that for a moment. God called Moses. Moses had a stuttering problem. Let my people go. God never delivered him from stuttering. When he came down with the 10 Commandments, he said, thou shalt not steal. His infirmity was still a sign that God uses you in spite of. Paul was so ashamed of his thorn in the flesh that we don't even know what it was. Whatever it was, it convicted him so that he didn't think you would read past his infirmity to read the rest of the epistle. So he just left it out and said, I'm not even going to tell you. But he never was delivered from his infirmity. God would allow certain things in our lives to linger, not that he's testing us, not that he's dangling us over the fire, but simply to show us that he is the God that brought us out, because God will bring us out and we will forget just yesterday all that God has done for us. We will forget just yesterday how good God has been to us. That's why we got to have praise teams, and that's why we got to have devotion teams, and that's why we got to pump you up, and that's why we got to say, lift your hands and give God praise. If you really think about how good God has been to you, you will get out your car. But I can't wait to praise him. You would walk in the doors across the threshold of the place. So, Lord, I need to lift you high right now. Folks would have to say to you, please sit down. The preacher's preaching. If you really think about that one thing that you thought would cause you to lose your mind. That one thing that you might have went through that your own mama don't need to know about. You see, it don't matter when you're serving him and everything well. When your reasons account and your Wachovia account is in the positive. But what are you going to do when trouble knocks on your door? And it never comes at a convenient time. Most death calls somehow tend to come in the middle of the night. What are you going to do when you stand at the altar and you pay for a wedding and you say, I do, and all of a sudden you're standing in front of a divorce court judge saying, I don't? What are you going to do when you raise a child and you pray and you cry and you spank them and you cry and you rear them and you cry and you're standing before a judge saying, God grant them grace? What are you going to do when you ran a mile, took vitamin A, took vitamin C, took vitamin D, but yet the doctor diagnoses you with an incurable disease? What are you going to do when everything pushes you against the wall and the faith that you prayed about, the faith that you sing about, that faith has to be tested? I tell you what you do. You stand on a unremovable rock, which is Christ Jesus, and I guarantee you that if you taste and see that the Lord is good,